I made a thin strip jig that's easy to build and safe to use. Check out the video to see just how simple it is to build. I am doing a project where I have to bend wood and need many thin strips. I looked at some jigs to buy, but they did not seem very safe, so I decided to make my own jig, which is really safe and easy to use. To make this jig, we can use scrap plywood. It doesn't have to be fancy. The main goal is to make it functional and safe to use. We are going to build the base first. Make 4 layers of plywood and stack them together. This will give a thickness of about 3 inches, just a bit less than the height of a 10-inch table saw blade. Join the layers together using a CA glue and activator. Secure each layer in place with screws, making sure to keep the screws away from the corners to avoid hitting the saw blade. Once the base is done, you might have uneven edges due to the plywood layers. Use a table saw to cut clean edges on all 4 sides. Be cautious while ripping on the table saw as we have attached layers with screws. Only take out a little on each corner. Now that the base is finished, the next step is to create grooves for the T-slots using a 5/8 inch keyhole router bit. It might seem a bit unclear at the moment, but it'll make sense soon. For routing the groove, a palm router works good. We need a plywood strip to hold the wood in place while cutting thin strips. To attach it securely to the base, we are using T-track bolts and knobs. That's why we routed T-slots to the base. Take the hold down plywood strip and refer to the base to identify where to drill the holes. A speed square might be handy for accuracy. From the bottom, measure half an inch and drill 1/4 inch holes. These holes will be used to join the hold down plywood strip to the base using T-bolts and knobs. To make this jig more secure, I attached 60 grit sandpaper on both the base and the hold down plywood strip. This will provide better grip when working with the wood. I used a spray adhesive to stick sandpaper to the plywood. At first I only sprayed on the plywood, but it did not bond well. Following the manufacturer's instructions, I sprayed on both surfaces and that gave a solid bond. Use a utility knife to cut the excess sandpaper. When ripping thin strips, you need a good grip to the jig. For better grip, I attached a long hold down push block to the jig using screws. I added a scrap plywood piece at the end of the jig to hold the wood. Swap it out as needed for different widths and thicknesses of the wood you are using for the thin strips. Now let's see the jig in action. Originally I thought of using star knobs to secure the T-track bolts, but they got in the way when securing the wood. So I switched them out for plastic wing nuts. If you are still following along with this build and have found the video enjoyable, expressing your support by subscribing to my channel and engaging with likes or comments would greatly contribute to its growth. Your interaction serves as motivation for me to produce more content. So if you could take a moment to hit the subscribe button, like the video and drop a comment, it would be genuinely appreciated. After ripping the first two thin strips, I found the hold on plywood strip too long. So I trimmed it to match the length of the jig, making it much easier to rip thin strips. I'm happy with how this jig turned out. It feels safe and secure when cutting thin strips. If you want the dimensions or plans for this build, just let me know in the comments. If there's enough interest, I'll share free plans for this jig. Thank you for sticking around until now. I trust you found the video enjoyable. Thanks once more, and I look forward to seeing you next time.